All right, in this video, I'm going to walk you through some of the things that we talked about just as an introduction. One of the pieces of introduction to the Gilded Age unit about capitalism and socialism. These are going to be really important foundational um, items in your in the entire class. So if you have any questions about this stuff after watching the video, please come and see me because it's really important you understand this. Um, First of all, look on page 7 of your binder. That's where we're going to work from today, and I'm going to type on here as I talk. And hopefully this works right, so that you can type along and follow along. If you need to pause the video to get the stuff down, go ahead and do that. But the idea is that you have a complete sheet after you are done listening to this video. So um, on the second full day of class, we talked about political, social, economic terms, and we identified capitalism as the economic system of the United States. Now, it's not pure capitalism, but we are going to talk about pure capitalism, textbook capitalism in this video, um, and then we'll talk about how it's modified as we go. But just want to understand in textbook terms. So probably the biggest thing, the main defining characteristic of capitalism is who owns property. And in capitalism, it's private ownership. So private ownership of land and property is the defining characteristic of um, capitalism. So you can own your own land, you can own your own business, you own your own small business, if it's a restaurant or a haircutting place or um, auto repair, whatever. All the profits are yours. Saying you can do whatever you want with them. You put in your pocket, you can expand, you can pay your people more, you can pay your people less as long as it's above minimum wage. You can do whatever you want. And so that's that freedom, that self-control, the individual um, nature of it is what makes it capitalism. So there's positives and negatives. We're going to talk about that. But one of the big things that we're going to talk about throughout the unit is, and really for the rest of the class, is the goal of capitalism, which is to make as much money as possible. So you're going to try and make as much money now. For some people, a certain amount is enough. They just want to be comfortable. They just want to make a living. For other people, they want to have all of the money in the universe, and that's that's part of it. That can happen. We'll get into some positives and negatives here in a second. One of the other things that I want you to understand about capitalism is one of the things that's required for that competition. Competition is absolutely necessary. If you don't have competition, it's not capitalism anymore, and we'll continue to talk about that. Competition serves an important function in capitalism because it does two things. It keeps quality high, it keeps prices low. So that's not to say that every product is made perfectly and every product is affordable. Of course, that's not right. But without competition, those two things get out of whack. So if there's no competition around, then a company can make a product as expensive as they want. And if they believe that people want it, then people are going to buy it. And they may not be super motivated to continue to make updates and invest in research and development and things like that. So um, again, competition is really necessary. So there are a number of positives and a number of negatives about capitalism. We're going to talk about a few of them here. One of the things that capitalism does is it promotes initiative. You have the opportunity to be successful in a capitalist system. It is possible. We're going to talk in the unit about a guy named Andrew Carnegie, who, when he emigrated to the United States from Scotland at age 8, was very poor. When he died, he was the richest man in the history of the world. So that can happen. Does it happen for everybody? No, of course not. And again, we'll get into some negatives here in a second. But it is possible that if you work hard and if you have a new idea and if you do things in a different way, and maybe if things kind of bounce your way and you get a little lucky, you can become very successful. Capitalism wants you to work hard, it wants you to innovate, it wants you to develop new things on the promise that you can then be successful. Think of all the people that try and start new businesses and do things in a new way. Why are they doing that? You know, there's a number of different motivations, but one of them is to be successful, to make money. Now, of course, that can lead to a number of negatives. One of the biggest of which is, whoops, is it can lead to massive wealth inequality. You are going to have in a capitalist system a few super rich people and a whole bunch of poor people. That's just the way it is. Now, the United States and other capitalist countries around the world have done things to try and close that gap or help people at the bottom, and that's some modifications we'll get into as we go in the unit and in subsequent units. But capitalism will have wealth inequality. It's just going to happen. What a society does with that reality is up to them. One of the other negatives is that inequality can lead to a lack of opportunity for some. So we say it promotes initiative and you can be successful, but not everybody is necessarily starting out on an equal playing field. Oops, you'll figure it out, you're smart. So not many people have the opportunity to improve their own lives because of socioeconomic status, lack of access to quality education. You know, there are some things that stand in some people's ways, and as unfortunate as that is, that's kind of what we see in a lot of capitalist systems. Again, this is pure capitalism. This is without any government interference. This is without regulations and rules. Some of the other negatives are things like abuse of workers, which we'll talk about in this unit, child labor. You know, greed can lead to people doing bad things, taking advantage of other people. So, you know, what do you do about that? Well, in the mid 1800s, some workers and people sympathetic with workers developed a new system that they felt would be more advantageous for them, and that was socialism. So, if capitalism is private ownership of land and property, socialism is the opposite. It's government ownership of land and property. So the government here is meant to be an extension of the people, and it's not necessarily the government over everybody owning things and doing stuff with them. It's supposed to be everybody having sharing everything. Um, and that is seen by people who advocate that as more fair. So the goal here is not necessarily to make money, it's the equal distribution of wealth. Everybody gets essentially the same. So no matter what job you work in a factory, you work in the fields, you work in a store, I mean, whatever passes for a store, you're a government official, you essentially get the same as everybody else. And you can see why a lot of workers in a capitalist system would think that was the most fair. They were the ones that were suffering. They stand to gain if all property is and all land and all wealth is accumulated and distributed equally. They would move up. Obviously, the people already at the top, the rich, the wealthy, wouldn't like socialism, don't like socialism. The ultimate goal here is a classless society. There's no rich, there's no poor, everybody's the same. You are not working for yourself. You're not being selfish, you're not being greedy. You are working for everybody else. You're working for, you know that the work that you do, even if you're just working in a factory, you know the work that you do benefits everybody. And if everybody has that mindset, you know, people are, the whole society is going to benefit from that. Now, what's good about socialism? Again, you're not going to have any poor, you're not going to have a lower class, you're presumably not going to have any homeless, you're not going to have anything like that because the government is going to provide housing, is going to provide all of that stuff for people. And of course, it's going to be seen by workers as the most fair system, most fair way of dividing up a country's resources. And again, if you come from a Gilded Age type capitalism system where a few people have almost all of the resources, it seems like, and a whole bunch of people are really struggling day to day to feed their families or make any money at all, yeah, you can understand why some people would embrace socialism. Now, what's bad about socialism? Well, if you remove the profit motivation, remove that goal of making money, that can remove some of that initiative, and it can cause a bit of laziness. Whoops. And a lack of initiative. So what's the motivation to keep developing, to keep focusing on things like consumer goods, new technologies? If money's a big motivator, and if you're not going to get rich, well, why am I going to invest money in it? So um, one of the probably the biggest negative for socialism is that throughout history, um, it does lead to corruption, dictatorships. If the government is all powerful, then there's no check on that. There's no democracy, or I mean that's what socialism is supposed to have is a certain amount of people controlling the government. But what happens is men are men, and they can be controlling and greedy, and um, we see dictatorships develop from that. And even in a socialist system, and you think of something like the Soviet Union when you talk about this, there are classes. There's a privileged working government class, and there's everybody else who are kind of struggling to get by. If the government doesn't want to spend money on something, they're not going to do it. You're not going to get it, and that can be frustrating when in a capitalist free enterprise system you just go out and do it yourself. Um, and these dictatorships that develop tend to be pretty brutal because the government is all powerful. And again, throughout the class, we'll keep looking at that and talking about that, especially when we get to the Cold War. All right, looking ahead, I'm not going to talk about these because I'm almost running out of time in the video, but these three terms are closely associated with capitalism, especially, which is what we want to focus most on, of course. So when you look at these three terms, I want you to look in your book, and I want you to write down quick definitions for each one. Um, you can look on page 382 and 384 and 385 of your textbook to find these terms. Obviously, you can look in the index and things like that and find the exact page. But look on those pages, write down definitions. And if you have any questions about those, you can let me know. But um, uh, hopefully this was helpful to you. Again, these are really important terms to understand. If you don't understand them, please come and ask me. I will not laugh at you. I will not make fun of you. I will help you. And please take advantage of that.